Welcome to GovCon Unscripted, where we dive into the unfiltered stories and strategies from all around the world of government contracting. Join host Chelsea Roberts as she explores how to navigate, thrive, and win in this complex but lucrative industry.
All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to GovCon Unscripted. I'm your host, Chelsea Roberts, CEO of Collaborative Compositions. Today, I've got with us guest Jena Jones, founder and CEO of PGT Solutions and the Molly Jones Foundation. Jena, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Jena Jones, and I am the CEO of PGT Solutions. We are a government contracting firm, primarily in the healthcare IT space. So we have a broad range of capabilities, but we focus primarily anywhere that there is a process or any required data that is going to improve the lives of veterans or service members or the providers that serve them.
Interesting. Now, you spent some time in the service, is that right?
I did. So I was Army enlisted.
And how long were you with the Army for?
So actually a point of probably a sore spot for me is that I did not get to finish my first term, and I won't get into why, of course, I guess like many other service members, honorably discharged, of course, nothing terrible that I did or anything, but I did want to continue. I always saw myself as a retiree, and so that was not how I saw my military career going. But I was in just a couple of years, and when I got out, though, I did immediately take a position with GDIT. Was my first government contracting role, and I didn't even get a new chair, of course. I got out. I think I got a 3-day weekend, and then I jumped right back in, and my unit that I exited from hired me directly. I spent another 5 years in my same unit that I exited from in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. And I eventually ended up, obviously, leaving the contracting space as an employee, but I don't know if you want me to get into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now, but okay, sure. It was a tough transition, I think, going from what you expected to be a long-term military career and then becoming a contractor, which obviously I have an affinity for government contracting now, but I don't think I understood it so much at the time and was not really finding my place in a position where I could grow and be seen as a professional and not as a 20-year-old girl that couldn't rent a car to my PM's frustration at every travel event. I did eventually end up leaving there. I thought I wanted out of the government contracting world completely. So I moved to Colorado, thought I would try things totally different. Realized that my short experience and lack of degree did not result in me being able to do much in the commercial space, regardless of what I knew and what I could do. It wasn't what I thought either, which is I thought that military experience, military training translated, which is what you're told and what you hope when you move into the private space. And that was not the case. So yes, I'll definitely skip a lot of the in-between stuff, but I ended up flailing around for quite a few years trying to make something work. I did some nonprofit work. I tried to start multiple businesses, ended up overworked, working multiple jobs, the whole long drawn out story of where to live and all that. But I realized that I love government work. I love military work. I love veterans. And as soon as I learned that it was possible to be a small business in the government space, I immediately, the next day, that's what I did.
We're going to get to how you learned about that, but I kind of want to start a little bit back in the story and when you went from what many consider the biggest bureaucracy in the world, which is the government itself, to the second biggest bureaucracy in the world, which is one of the large prime contractors.
Yeah.
What motivated that decision? Had they recruited you directly from your service position?
They had, yeah. So they were aware of my situation getting out and earlier than anticipated. And I was already filling a role from a government position that was, I don't know if it was unfunded or at the time I wouldn't have known the difference. So there was a government role that I was already filling as a service member. And I was the only one filling that role in the training world. And I was actually at the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Schoolhouse for Department of Defense, which was primarily an Army facility, but served all the services. But I just happened to be the only one in a role. So I don't know if it was that they wanted me or they didn't have a choice because I was the only one that could do the job.
Did they have a contract that brought you on for that position?
They did, yeah. So
Okay.
Once I transitioned, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So GDIT was the contractor for the UAS schoolhouse at the time.
Interesting. So I think there's something unique about that not a lot of service members get the opportunity to transition directly into roles that they were serving in previously, or into roles that even interacted with people that they were serving with previously, because there's so many limitations. Did you experience limitations in your role at GDIT?
Yeah, it was difficult going from being an E3 to a government contracting position. It was very difficult. If we're being honest, I don't know that I was fairly compensated, and I don't know that it's not a company knock. It was just, I was young, I had no experience, and
Sure.
the role that I was able to fill was higher than on paper I was technically qualified for. And it was difficult if ever I broke out of the Private Jones persona. And so no matter how long I worked there, and that was ultimately why I ended up leaving. I felt that I needed to break the visual that they had. I didn't think I was ever going to be able to grow and increase my roles and skill sets and pay and all that with the people that just knew me as a private.
Do you feel like you were given some of the opportunities within your time in service to learn that worth or that value that you would have on the outside?
No, maybe that was due to my shorter duration. I think at the stage that I was in my military career, they more want you to know that you should listen to everybody else versus what your skill sets are going to translate to once you're out. Maybe other people have a different experience, but it could just been a timing thing for me. But I was at least fortunate to have that opportunity to move on to be a government contractor. I don't know what I would have. I had that struggle even after leaving as a contractor and trying to show people what I was capable of doing without the standard education.
So going from the big government bureaucracy to a smaller type government bureaucracy, do you feel like that was a little bit of a softer landing?
You mean going in as a contractor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was certainly a softer landing. You knew what was going on. It wasn't, like I said, same job, different clothes. So it's a softer landing for sure, but it makes it harder to break out of. It's the same structure.
Yeah.
So you just moved onto a different ladder of the same shade. And
Right.
so it made it more difficult, I guess, to realize that I could do something different. If I so chose.
It sounds like the ladder on the other side of the fence was just a little bit less clear in terms of how to make your way up that progression.
Sure, yeah. And you feel like maybe that's your whole world and that's all you know. And that's the correct and only path.
So you decided to go from GDIT into commercial, just straight commercial, no government involvement, no government interaction.
Yeah.
And
that was
and
my
straight
goal. Was get as far away as possible and see how that goes.
And what was that experience like?
Not great. I don't know, the old picture, you start in a hole, you don't just jump out of it. Like it just digs, you know what I mean? And I thought that I could dig out of this hole of starting from nothing and getting out and having nothing. And when I got out, there was a mistake and I didn't get my GI Bill right away. It took me years to get my GI Bill. And so I couldn't do that. And I think the hole just kept getting deeper. So it wasn't that the commercial world was wrong. I was just starting in a hole and it got deeper and deeper. Trying to translate those skill sets. Everybody wanted to hire me, but they didn't want to pay me for the job because I didn't have the degree and I didn't have anything on paper to show for what I could do. So
I think that's an unreasonably common thing for transitioning service members to experience, is that they don't really necessarily know how to translate the skills and experience and time that they spent in the military into commercial-based resume features and bullet points that really highlight and showcase those areas of expertise. And I'm assuming that this was a couple of years ago. How long ago was this?
Oh no. So I started PGT in, let's say 2016, really. I tried in 2015. It didn't really get off the ground until 2016. So it was a long time ago. I think I transitioned to GDIT in 2007.
Okay. Yeah, so that's back when degrees, I think, had a much higher value, and they were much more sought after than I think that these days even they are.
Oh, I think it's changed hugely. Even from a hiring perspective, honestly, the last thing I look at is a degree, if we're being honest.
Interesting. Yeah. So what drove you to start PGT? What was that sort of motivating factor?
After not doing so well in the commercial market, I decided that I loved all those things. I loved the military. I wanted to stay, and I love service members. I loved the nonprofit world. I love public service. And I just thought, I never got the opportunity to do it the way I wanted to do it. No one was going to be listening to me.
Yeah.
And so I just thought I'd work alone. I thought I would just say, hey, I'll use the skill sets that I have in training is where I started because that was my background. And I'll use the skill sets I have and I'll just work as a consultant, as a 1099 and see what I can come up with. And so that's what I did. I actually started in tactical training development, which is a really weird space.
Yeah.
So I was a training developer and training manager for GDIT. But when I was in the service, I did a lot of tactical training management and development. And I translated that initially to law enforcement and EMS.
Oh, okay.
That was a little more accessible than federal
Right.
contracts. So I jumped in and just said, hey, I'm not going to compete with all of these former cops and military who are doing these tactical training programs and stuff across the country. So what I did was I went to them and said, hey, look, like, I don't want to compete with you. I want to support you. So, you are doing a great job. You know what you're doing, but you don't know how to get it on paper and get it approved through the proper channels and have a formal curriculum that you can actually build and translate and grow. So that's what I did. I supported all of the individual training companies, as many as I could. And I just did that as a private contractor and traveled all over.
It sounds like that was more at a state and local level than
Yes.
what you were targeting.
Yeah. So a lot more accessible, which at the time, it's funny because now as a larger company, I can't figure out how to get back into state and local. So
Yeah.
And now it's a weird transition, but at the time, that was my way in because I was only looking for the little crumbs. I was just
Right.
looking for a crumb here and a crumb there to get the experience and figure out how to be a government contractor and see what I could build. And so that ended up really good. My first good decision in hindsight.
So you started as an individual, like just
Yep.
you on your own, going to 1099 contract with folks,
Yes.
which I will say that a lot of folks in the federal sector these days I think everybody's scratching their heads as to how to get into state and local because they're so individual. They just have their unique sort of cultures and individuality and individual nuances that they ultimately have skipped over being a big F federal contractor. So everybody's trying to figure out how to get back into that or how to get into that for the first time, those little niche areas that have those opportunities, which a lot of federal funding is headed that way. It's going into state and local programs. So it's really interesting that you started there. And so how did you grow from, what was the decision point or the opportunity that allowed you to grow from just you to many?
Yeah. So actually, I had a really weird client. I say that when I was doing the tactical training. So I had a website and everything, and I had somebody reach out to me that I thought was a scam. And so I actually was reached out to by the Asian Institute of Technology. And they just found my website somehow and said, hey, we want to run a training program on what was it? Hopefully I say this correctly, but water resource intervention. And it was for the government of Bangladesh. And basically, the gist of it was that Bangladesh geographically is extremely similar to New Orleans, if you look at it from a geographical standpoint. And what they wanted to do was learn what we learned from Katrina and go through basically from a technical standpoint and from a governance standpoint and take that home to help rebuild their programs and their prevention methods. And it was the weirdest thing that they reached out to me. It's nothing like what I did, but of course I was like, yep, I can do that. And so there I traveled all over. I took them to New Orleans. I took them to New York. I took them to a bunch of places to work with government officials and to basically just establish a custom training program for this group of delegates that came from Bangladesh and the Asian Institute of Technology. And like I said, it was a random thing that I didn't even solicit. And I just realized there's more. I don't have to do this one specific thing that I've always done. I can grow and expand and learn and bring in experts. And that was my first time. I didn't run any of the training, clearly, but I managed it. I pulled in experts from all over the place. And I was like, this is a real business. This is how you actually run a company. You just find the right people. And then from then on, I said, I'm going to go where the opportunities are for veterans. And that's the VA. And that was IT. And even though IT is not in my personal skill set whatsoever, that one contract taught me that you just have to be good with people and you have to do your due diligence in finding real experts that actually care. And then that's the good job done.
Wow.
I immediately translated to VA and I took my first contract on a T4NG contract. That as a sub, clearly, I took just a 1-year training transition piece on a T4NG contract for 2 people. It's my first 2 hires, one of which is still on our team today. And that was it. And then we transitioned to IT after that.
Wow. First of all, is an interesting transition to go from water resource management into IT, which is a very interesting and clearly different skill set to have anything that I think would probably be within that ultimately opportunity from Bangladesh. Did you travel to Bangladesh? Did you get the opportunity to go there and meet
I
people?
didn't have to go there. No, they all came here. Yes.
Wow.
But, yeah.
That's incredible. So did that count as an OCONUS contracting opportunity?
I don't know. So the paying authority was OCONUS. I've never really thought about it because it was done privately. It wasn't like a U.S. federal contract.
Interesting.
I can tell you they were shocked when they showed up and saw a 27-year-old woman running their water resource intervention program. That was not what they expected, but
I'm sure they were pleased though.
yeah, no, it actually went shockingly well.
That's an incredible opportunity for you to recognize that's, first of all, not a scam. I probably would have been just a little suspicious doing my due diligence and checking around and figuring out who all was inquiring as to what, but betting on that opportunity and putting yourself out there into a position of doing something that you had never done before, I think an inspirational leap to take. That's a lot of folks really don't feel ever comfortable enough to get outside of their comfort zone or their specific box of understanding. So I think that's pretty inspirational.
Thanks. And obviously there are many ways to get this done, many ways to start it. But when you do it, I like to call the hard way, which is by yourself with no funding. We've never had a loan. We've never had any sort of outside funding. And I never had a partner to do it with. It was just me. I had no staff, no administrative support, any of that, contracting, legal. It was just fumbling through all of it alone. It's very scary. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that think they have to have all that, which I will say that even today, like in hindsight, I am so grateful that I never took any help that way, because it's a different sense of pride, number one, but it's completely my company and it's our mission and there's no convolution, and I'm glad we did it that way.
And what were some of the hardest challenges? It sounds like you've worn every hat, probably plus more, in your business and doing the invoicing and doing the accounting and doing all of the compliance and regulatory work and everything from selling it to getting out there and being the one doing the work. It sounds like you've done just about everything, if not twice as much as most people would in their business. So what are some of the challenges that you feel like you've experienced and overcome in starting that?
Obviously, everything I had to learn from scratch. I used my GI Bill not to get a degree, but to take an accounting class. And there were certain areas I think that are more difficult than others. But yes, I've done every job in the company. I think the hardest part is ignoring the part that you would prefer to do and figuring out your actual best, smartest hires. Because it's not about the things that I would prefer to do. It's about what's the most efficient, what's best for the company, which things are better to replace, right? So I would have liked to kept things like finance and stuff like that. I would have liked to have kept that personally. Weirdly, I enjoy that stuff, but that wasn't the best use of my time. So I think hiring obviously is insanely difficult and the biggest hurdle in every business. But deciding which hires to make as you're slow growing, which parts of yourself to replace first, second, third, that was definitely a hurdle. I did it wrong first. I think when I first started hiring other management, it's nothing about the people that I hired. It was just the wrong order of events. And I struggled that way. So I had duplication in skill sets and then gaps in skill sets. And it took me quite a long time. I'm still figuring out how to best hire and what the best skill sets are to hire at any given time.
I personally deal with that same sort of challenge constantly in trying to figure out who, what, for when, and why. And it is definitely one of the biggest challenges I've had as well in terms of running a business, is trying to figure out what things I shouldn't be doing and how to hire for those things, because it's not always just a straightforward plug and play. Here's this individual, you can put them into that position and they're going to thrive because it looks like they might be good there. It's really finicky mix to figure out.
Yeah, and I would say the other hardest thing that's on topic is my earlier years at the company was learning that everyone else outside of the company who's there to help you are not really there to help you. I trusted things early on, which everybody does. And I don't want to give the advice, don't trust anybody. I don't want to, but I certainly did not trust the right people necessarily in the beginning. There was a lot of wasted time and effort. And I learned the hard way that just because you're smaller, that even larger companies and such aren't necessarily trying to help. They can still get something from you. And so I had to learn that slowly, I think.
unsolicited parenting advice. You really don't want to fall too deep into that rabbit hole because everybody's got an opinion on it. Everybody's got something
and a
to
different
say.
motive.
And a different motive. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's oftentimes for their benefit. It's not, advice is very seldom for you.
I think probably one of the best quotes of this conversation is advice is so seldomly actually for you. So take it with a grain of salt. Absolutely. So what were some of the challenges or hurdles that you overcame with that transition from that contract with the folks in Bangladesh to the VA? I would imagine they're quite different contracting systems.
Sure. The biggest thing is the difference between going out and getting your own work as a private entity and jumping into a federal space where you can't just jump in and prime. That's the biggest hurdle, is deciding how to deal with subbing in order to get the skill sets and the past performance that you need to be in charge of your own work. And I don't want to say I'm not a good sub. That doesn't make me sound very good. But when I say I'm not a good sub, what I mean is I don't enjoy not having quality control. And so now, granted, we have some companies that we work with that are fantastic, but learning that is hard learned, right? And it takes time, but especially when you're new and you don't know who you're working with, the biggest challenge is just the structure of subbing. So for some people, obviously it's necessary. They don't know how to run a contract. And so fairly, you need to learn that way. But oftentimes as a sub, you're not really learning at the same time. You're just doing a task. And instead of learning how to be a prime, because that's not your role and it's competitive, of course, with the primes, we actually took, I always say we, me and my imaginary friends. So we early on took an opportunity. I was lucky to meet a few really good people in the industry right off the bat. Not anybody gave me contracts or anything like that, but just people who spoke well of me. And I appreciated that. Due to that, someone came to me who I didn't know. Another company was being acquired by a large, and they had some duplicative and conflicting contract vehicles that they needed to get rid of before the sale or during the sale. And I guess this company was looking for someone that they could trust with their contracts, with these couple that they couldn't pass along to this new acquisition. And he was suggested to talk to me. So he reached out to me and it ended up working out. I had to jump through hoops that I didn't think were possible in order to get it done, but we were able to novate some government schedules over to us, and we were able to become a prime contractor in our first year.
Wow, that is quite the feat. That is so rarely.
It was not easy, and it was expensive, and I took contracts that were losing money that I didn't have to support. But I just thought that this is my opportunity. I might not get this opportunity again for years and years, right? And just did what I had to do, and it was a rough couple of years getting those contracts to a place where they were profitable and I could manage them sufficiently. But we made them better. We won the contracts as PGT versus the Novation. So we not only won the recompetes, but we grew them significantly. We're still running those same contracts today. That was 10 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible. That's definitely demonstration of a job well done, and ultimately some true customer testimony that they like working with you. They like having you as a prime in their ecosystem.
I hope so.
Were those all with the VA?
They were.
Interesting. Did you find that there was some advantage there to having been or being a veteran and having started your own company, having the veteran-owned business?
Yeah, for VA, that's why I went there initially, was because they award the most contracts to veteran-owned companies. And it's not that there aren't other agencies that focus on veteran-owned companies. But yes, there is an advantage, but it's also the highest number of other veteran-owned companies in competition with you. Honestly, I consider it a wash because if you go somewhere else to another agency that happens to put out a solicitation for a veteran-owned company, the competition there of regular companies is fewer. And then the competition now, after the current contract crises that we're going through, has, if there was a contract that we saw 4 bidders on a year ago, there's 40 bidders today.
Wow.
And so I consider it like a contract vehicle. Like, being a veteran gave us the license to work in the VA, but the VA is extremely competitive. So more so than I've experienced elsewhere.
Interesting. And now, did you take that? I guess, let me step back a second. Have you experienced or seen more in the way of competition or in the way of consolidation? Have you been impacted by that in the last year or so?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, I'll skip the details, but we were hit hard. A lot of the companies we work with are hit hard. I think the biggest question marks for us, or where you talk about consolidation, is we're not necessarily sure where these consolidations are happening. So I think those question marks are still up in the air if they're going to happen. So if any of the work is going to come back, is it going to come back consolidated? Is it going to come back bigger, smaller, nobody
Right.
knows. So right now, the work's just gone for the most part. And we're all just sitting, waiting to see what's coming back and what's not. And it's been the most difficult year, I'm sure, not just for our company, but for our entire history as a company.
And it sounds like you've also noticed an increase in competition. I'm sure not just in your industry, but probably in others as well.
Yeah, I would imagine so. It's just math, fewer contracts, where if there were 10 valid contracts out at one time that we could potentially bid on, we only have resources to bid to. And every company's in that position. And now there's only one contract out that everybody has the skills and capacity to take. And everybody has the capacity because there's nothing else being bid right now. And so every single company who could even like fake doing that is bidding right now.
Everyone who can put in a good AI proposal can get away with it.
We have not switched to AI yet on proposals, and I know it's going to be a necessary evil, at least as a tool. But yeah, so don't get me started.
So since you started priming contracts, have you expanded by way of subcontracting any work to other companies?
You mean us subcontracting or?
Yeah.
So we're trying, yes. That is the goal. However, scarcer work, everyone's holding on to their work. In situations where they would have subbed some work out before, everyone's holding tight, and understandably.
It's a really challenging environment right now, which makes the fact that you've come so far and grown such a successful company, I think, to this point, even more impressive. I'd say that being able to sustain yourselves through all these years and ultimately still have something at the end of this year is just incredibly. It's one of those things that not a lot of companies right now are in a position to say. So I think that speaks well to your customer involvement and that your customers like you, ultimately like working with you.
I appreciate that. Of course, that could change any day. We are certainly not immune from more cuts and more changes. I am very proud of our team, and I'm really lucky to have the team that's stuck it out through all of this. You see all the time, like across LinkedIn or whatever, just in conversation, that people are jumping ship from other companies. They're going to a more stable environment, and as their prerogative. But none of mine have yet to do so, not one. And
that's fantastic.
Thank you.
It speaks a lot to the company culture too.
It does. And they're in it for the long haul. And I appreciate that. So that's probably what's going to keep us going, because when the opportunity comes, when some of this work starts coming back, if you don't have the people that know what they're doing, and then not just smart people, but people who know where the PGT bodies are buried, specifically, if you don't have those people, you are not going to be ready to be competitive, and maintaining our same staff is key.
And that's impressive that you recognize that. Not many people have, I think, within the government side and in many government contractors have recognized that maintaining a skill set on bench is imperative.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough though, because I get it. When finances are hard, you got to make cuts. And if you're going to survive as a company, but you have to think forward to when those opportunities come back, you are going to be so much less successful with new staff. Even if you saved that 6 months of money and then you bring someone new at the time when those opportunities come back, your capacity, your efficiency, your motivation as a company is going to be different. So your success will reflect that.
Let the government audience that is listening to this take note of that writ large. Words of advice there that are for you. But you mentioned it a little bit earlier. What is PGT? What are the next steps for PGT? Where are you going in the future?
Hopefully PGT is going to be taking the things that we do so well within the VA and applying those to other agencies, right? Diversifying and hopefully doing a lot more with innovation. So right now we do everything that supports innovation. We build out workflows and processes and data requirements for new ideas, new systems, new tools to work. And we are trying to move additionally into some more areas of innovation where we're actually coming up with the tool, the system, the methodology themselves, in addition to the data and workflows associated with them. And then, of course, the things that we already do really well, we want to apply those to other agencies and groups.
And it sounds like state and local as well.
So
that's fantastic.
I mean, I think if we can take a much broader, much more complicated moving parts program, I think what we can do for a state and local agency, which has its own complications, not saying they're less complicated. They're just the breadth is smaller, but the complications are different, not less. But I think that we could be of big value there.
And now you mentioned a foundation earlier on that I would love to touch on. So what is the Molly Jones Foundation?
Yeah, I have always been involved in multiple nonprofits. I've been on boards. I've worked full time for nonprofits. It's definitely where my passion lies. And I've actually been running a private animal sanctuary for about 6 years now. And it's right here. It's outside. And I do that privately, and that's just something that I love. It fulfills me. If I have a bad call or a bad hour, I just walk outside and take care of a sick goat.
Oh my God.
And it really balances my, I don't know what you want to call it, the hard work versus passion and keeping you motivated in both directions. But I've done that for many years. And this past year, I did decide to expand and start a formal foundation. So the foundation actually covers multiple areas of service. So it's animal welfare, environmental sustainability, and veteran services, of course. Yeah, so all three tracks will run separately, and then the foundation as a whole, of course, will operate. But the really exciting part that I'm looking forward to implementing, so phase one is to bring in solid donors on a solid board to support and pass through money to organizations that are already doing a fantastic job in those three areas. And so we're looking to partner with organizations that are already established and help them either increase quality or throughput. Those are our two goals once they're already doing well. But then phase two of the foundation, which I'm starting to develop right now, which is really exciting, is in the government industry, there's what we call innovation labs or centers of excellence.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
what we want to set up is a center of excellence. And what we want to do is either adapt things, whether it's a tool or a process or technology that are working well over here, and we're going to take it and bring all the experts that we need and other fantastically smart people and say, how do we take this thing that's working so well, either for a larger organization or a different type of organization, and how do we help these organizations over here become more efficient and have higher quality and throughput? So there's that. And then we will also run innovation pipelines, such as a SIBR process almost.
Sure.
Where we have people come in with great ideas and we help fund getting this idea through that's going to make the world better. And we want that to be individuals and other companies that we work with. So if anybody ever watches this and you work with me, expect that I will be hitting you up for our Center of Excellence, because I would like to take all those wonderful things that you do already and use them to make the world better in all these other areas.
Interesting. Does that have a topic focus area, or is it all specific to animal welfare, or is it
all three? That there's environmental sustainability and veteran services.
Okay.
The foundation, I'm intending for it to be pretty broad, and there's not just one type of organization that we're looking to support, right? We're looking for donors who do have a specific interest, right? And then we will help get their money to organizations that are vetted as doing what they're supposed to be doing and are financially stable and have longevity as far as we can see. But then the innovation piece will be for any of those tracks. So if you want to help water resources in the West for wild podcasts, I don't know what you want to do, but if you have an idea, we want to help you. And we plan to run it like a SIBR, where we help you get the concept together. And hopefully it's not just individuals. Hopefully it's companies who already have something that they're using for another purpose, right? For a for-profit venture, right? And we say, hey, look, do you know what you could do for veterans homelessness if you took this thing that you're doing over here for fisheries and applied it to whatever the case may be? So it sounds broad, but really it's just like any government program where they say, hey, show us how you can do something great with AI. It's broad, but it's broad for a reason, because people have big ideas and they just don't know how to get them off the ground. And if you pigeonhole them, then you end up with something that's too specific and helps fewer people.
I love that. Taking ideas that ultimately have either not gotten off the ground, that's specific enough to limit the amount of benefit that they can bring to the world, and opening that benefit up to others. That's a noble cause.
Thank you. I'm excited. I hope it does everything that I want it to do and more, because we're going to bring in people who have more ideas than me.
Now, that's a great point to put us into our conclusion here. So if people want to get a hold of you to find out more about either your foundation or about working with you, how do they do that?
So they can email me in either space. My personal email on both sides is available, and you want me to provide them, or I can give them to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So to get in touch with us for PGT, it is Jena, Jena.Jones at PGTsolutions.com. And on the foundation side, it is Jena, Jena at MollyJonesFoundation.com.
Fantastic. And we'll get that in the show notes for everybody. And I'm sure that you've got the website for PGT up. Is the Molly's Foundation website up yet?
It is not. So we are in the progress of having that developed right now. So the emails are active. The website is, I would say, give me 30 to 60 days.
On its way.
Yes.
Now, what platform do you use the most for socials? Is it LinkedIn?
None of them.
And that's a totally fine answer.
Oh, yeah, but yes, we use LinkedIn. I am not a social media. I know that I have to change that and I have to adapt and not yell at the kids to get off my lawn and all that stuff. But I'm adapting. Yes, right now it's LinkedIn. We are going to create, especially for the foundation, there will be a lot more media involved in the foundation. So we'll have an Instagram and Facebook, and all that's being created right now as well.
Fantastic. So if folks want to reach you, mainly best way is email. We'll make sure we get that in the show notes. And then we'll put the websites in the show notes as well. And we'll just, for funsies, we'll link everybody to your LinkedIn so you can get that much more LinkedIn traffic.
Okay. All right.
This has been a fantastic conversation full of insights and inspirational ways that you've taken your business from just you and to many and serving many. I appreciate you joining me today, Jena. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, and thank you. I appreciate it because I was terrified. So thank you for making it casual and easy.
Good. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'm sure that we will be having you back on the show as soon as that foundation is up and running more, and we can get more insights into all the different ideas and innovations that you're bringing to the space.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of GovCon Unscripted with your host, Chelsea Roberts. Do you have a GovCon story or need guidance in government contracting? Connect with Chelsea on LinkedIn to be a guest on the show or to enhance your business strategy. Don't forget, your network is your net worth. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your growing GovCon community.